Have you ever wondered how fragrances are professionally classified? Are they just simply fresh or sweet, like a lot of people may classify them as? In a previous video on the channel that went quite viral, I actually explained the original 9 fragrance families, although I think I added 2 myself in that video. Traditionally, in classical perfumery, perfumers used to actually use 7 different fragrance families. Off the top of my head, I believe the fragrance families before used to be florals, aromatics, fougères, chypres, citrus, woody fragrances, and then I think oriental, which I believe now is an offensive term to use in modern times. I was actually of the understanding that this is still the main way that perfumers use to classify fragrances. I actually watched a reactor to a Jensen's video about his guide to all things fragrances, and I actually was wrong in that reaction.
But in actuality, there are 4 generally accepted families of fragrances right now, which are fresh, floral, amber, and woody.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before because I've always known that perfumers traditionally have the fragrance wheel of being 7 different fragrance families. You can potentially include 8. He was actually correct. There are 4 main categories for fragrance classification nowadays. It seems that actually in the modern industry, we have a new way of classifying fragrances made by a very important man in the industry, Michael Edwards, who's given us the modern day fragrance wheel, which is more complex than the 4 different categories. Actually, there are 14 main families on the fragrance wheel, and actually online I've seen some fragrance wheels based off this that are even more complex to really specify exactly what type of a perfume you are experiencing in each release. I feel like classification is actually probably much harder than we appreciate. Michael Edwards, according to his Wikipedia page, is a British fragrance taxonomist, which I didn't know even existed as a job. Apparently he works in the industry helping other businesses, other big research firms to understand consumer behaviors. He writes some books about fragrance classification and fragrance history in general, which just goes to show there's a lot of things going out there in the world. The world is bigger than we think, and there's just specialized people in these industries. So we'll go to his website, Fragrances of the World. We're going to go through the entire fragrance wheel, where I'm going to explain to you guys how he describes each fragrance family, and I'm going to give you my prominent examples of how I think you can explore each fragrance family if you want to, all 14 of them. We'll go around in clockwise fashion, starting from floral, going to amber, then woody, and then fresh. Let's begin. I'm happy to say, guys, that finally the Curiosity collection from Atrium, which is creative perfumery for all fragrance collectors, is now available in all regions that we deliver to. You can acquire all 5 fragrances in the collection as samples, so you can get a well-rounded collection in one purchase where you can experience a variety of different styles, which I think matches the theme of this video perfectly. Go ahead and click the link in the description, guys. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for this sample set. Okay, first up we go floral. From single flower concertos to symphonies of complex bouquets, today's perfumers capture the essence of living flowers. Now, by the way, guys, we actually started explaining these classifications in our own email newsletter from Atrium on our website. You can click the link in the description down below, and then you get an email pop up. You can sign up for our newsletter, guys, to learn about fragrances. So this was part 1 of that newsletter, and actually for this category, which is basically just a combination of different flowers, you're often going to see this more in feminine fragrances, not necessarily in men's fragrances. In the newsletter, I actually gave the example of Ormonde's Kashmir, which I don't have anymore, unfortunately, but that had interesting notes like jasmine and blue poppy note in there, which is very unique, a rose note. It was an interesting combination of different floral notes coming at you. It was unisex overall and had a very sexy cedarwood dry down. I didn't think cedarwood could be such an attractive note. That fragrance is very good. Ormonde is one of the best niche fragrance houses in general. It's a very good fragrance from them, Kashmir. You should go check it out. But you can also experience this family, I believe, from Moschino Toy Boy. I didn't appreciate this, but you know, everyone knows this is a rose fragrance. It's a men's musky, spicy, slightly green rose scent that is a bit polarizing, but I think it's very attractive. I think it's a masterpiece. It's quite loud. It also has a magnolia and flax floral notes in there. So maybe I'm going to just about put this in that category of the floral family. It's definitely floral is one of the main aspects of Toy Boy, and I think it is beautiful. I do think a lot of guys should try this out. If you want to stand out as a man, florals are quite unique. Go for fragrances like this that focus on them, and you will smell like no one else, but in a cool way, in my opinion. And also, generally, I think fragrances that focus highly on florals are going to smell more natural in general, and probably more timeless as well because of that. Soft floral. The marriage of sparkling aldehydes with delicate flowers and musk creates soft, often powdery, abstract florals. So with that description, I'm kind of thinking of fragrances that have a slight metallic tinge to them with aldehydes. They're powdery and might have like that slight laundry detergent effect you get with some fragrances. A classic example for me is always 724 by MFK. That's a very laundry detergent fragrance, like a very synthetic white musk, in my opinion, is what is used in that fragrance. But for this, actually, powdery, clean, metallic, I think this fragrance here would suit it. That's going to be Prada L'Homme, the original. So looking at this description again, sparkling aldehydes. I think this is sparkling, a little bit metallic actually in Prada L'Homme, in my opinion. It has that slight soapy aspect to it. Delicate flowers. It's got an iris, of course, which creates a powdery, probably abstract floral as well, because this is probably an iris accord or note, but not necessarily the real thing, which is orris. Orris root is the real form of iris as far as I know. So Prada L'Homme to me, I think, fits this category perfectly. If you want a clean, soapy, powdery iris, elegant, bright, you know, hated by me, you know, it gets quite a lot of hate on this channel, but I think it's very good. It's still a very well-made fragrance. I do prefer Prada L'Homme Intense, but I think in this category, that description, that fits Prada L'Homme perfectly. So yes, you're technically exploring a floral family when you wear this fragrance. A lot of men love to wear this. It's cool, it's unique enough, it's an interesting fragrance. Prada L'Homme. 37.9% of people who watch School of Scent are subscribed to us. If you guys really want to see our channel grow, go ahead and click subscribe. Let's get that number to 40%. Thank you. Then as we progress around the wheel, things get a little bit sweeter with floral ambers. You guys are noticing that they kind of blend the wheel together. We're going from the floral family to the amber family, but we're still on the floral side of the wheel here, guys, but it's all kind of blending together. Imagine luminous flowers warmed with spices, resins, and vanilla. So I'm thinking of something quite dark, sweet, a little bit floral. It has to be this fragrance here. I'd recommend to try this family out. It's going to be Tom Ford Noir Extreme. This has the cardamom. I believe it has other spices in there. I might be wrong. It has the florals also. I think it has rose and a few other florals. I'm trying to, you guys have probably seen the notes on screen right now. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Of course, it's very vanillic. This is a sexy fragrance overall. Great for date nights. It has that very distinct gourmand aspect to it as well. So again, on this entire fragrance wheel, I don't really see, or maybe there is, maybe later on in the fresh side, but I want to call this fragrance fresh, but you can't see like a sweet gourmand family in there. Hence why I was referring back to that really complex fragrance wheel, or those fragrance wheels I was seeing before. So Tom Ford Noir Extreme definitely fits this kind of description. Dark, floral, vanillic, spicy. It has probably some resins in there. Resins, I always think fragrance notes like a Popanax, like myrrh, frankincense, elemi, those kind of notes, which often give like a dark, smoky, ambery vibe to themselves, these notes, and are a little bit exotic smelling. I do think Noir Extreme does smell exotic in general, because kulfi just isn't a note you see in Western fragrances, or any fragrance in general, really. It's very unique, very cool. One of my favorite date night fragrances. Okay, moving on to the amber family and to the first subfamily of the group is called soft amber. Incense casts a spell on sweet spices and resins to create softly sensual fragrances. Okay, I don't have my bottle anymore, but when I was making the newsletter, I referred to Comme des Garcons Floriental, which I think is a super excellent fragrance, really underrated and interesting sandalwood fragrance, but actually everything else that's in the description doesn't really describe sandalwood, it's describing everything else about this fragrance. Incense is a prominent note, plum as well, the plum is on this in this description, but incense, sweet spices, the pink pepper, which is not a sweet spice necessarily, resins, I would say labdanum is quite ambery, thick, I would say it's quite resinous, softly sensual, it can be seen like that. Sandalwood fragrances in general are quite soft and sensual in general. Comme des Garçons is a really cool fragrance. I think it's super underrated. If you want a really interesting, different, a little bit exotic, Middle Eastern-esque / Western as well signature, I think more guys should check it out. I think Comme des Garçons, sometimes the fragrances can be a bit hit or miss. I used to own 2 of them. I used to own a few of them in general. I can't remember how many I owned, but Floriental I think is probably one of their best. Definitely check it out if you want to explore the brand. Next up we have amber, sensual blends of golden resins, opulent flowers, and sweet vanilla. This family sounds rich, decadent, sweet. It has to be MFK's Grand Soir. When I think of this description, golden, honestly, I feel like this fragrance smells like the way it looks. It smells golden as well. It's warm, ambery. It's quite simple, but very good quality ingredients. Vanilla. The flowers come from the labdanum again as well. I believe labdanum is in there. And of course, this is just mainly an amber vanilla fragrance. It's one of the sexiest evening scents, quite beastly. I honestly think for most collections, 35 ml like I'm holding here, it'll be absolutely fine. A really great family in general. Amber is a chord that isn't actually real. It's a fantasy accord. Perfumers create in their own way, usually labdanum and vanilla and some kind of musk, but each perfumer has their own unique one, as I said. I feel like they've created their core beautifully here. If vanilla is just a bit too, I don't know, juvenile for you, too simplistic, smells too edible, ambers are probably better for your style. They're a bit more balanced, a bit more interesting in their sweetness. They don't smell as gourmand. Next up, woody amber. Again, they're blending the wheel, going from the amber family to the woods family now. Woody amber. So, spicy amber accords woven with potent wood notes of patchouli, oud, and sandalwood. This sounds very Middle Eastern. This sounds quite rich, decadent. This, in the old categorization, probably would have been perfectly aligned with the Oriental family, which is an offensive term nowadays, I believe. So, yes, that kind of style, that kind of perfumery, you're thinking of it, I think this fragrance pretty much fits that description perfectly. This is Merchant of Venice's Energia 21. Spices, I think it has cinnamon in here. It's got potent wood notes. I think patchouli is in there, but it's also got a very prominent oud in there, as it says. Sandalwood might be in there as well. It's gourmand with that praline, a very interesting woody amber. It's quite beastly. One of the best niche fragrances out there. One of my favorites. I think this, from what I've tried Merchant of Venice, this is my favorite from the house, and they're a very good house in general. Try them out, guys. This is a niche cold weather head turner that fits this description perfectly. I think this family is just the kind of guy who wants to stand out, really be recognized, maybe smell quite intense. Maybe fragrances like Oud for Greatness would fit in here as well, and also perhaps Gucci Intense Oud I think could fit in here also. That kind of style, intense, woody, usually quite loud. Those kind of fragrances, great. I love this family. Moving on to the wood side of the fragrance wheel. Sheer woody notes that renew the harmonies of cedar, patchouli, pine, sandalwood, and vetiver. So all these notes they're describing here in this description all have woody aspects to them. I think papyrus can also have a woody aspect to it. Cypriol probably has a woody aspect also. You can get woody aspects in different ways from many different notes. When I think of this family, unfortunately I have to say, guys, I don't own the bottle anymore, thankfully, but I have to mention Le Labo's Santal 33, which is a layering of different notes. The name is Santal, but actually I think this is more of a cedarwood fragrance, honestly. It's cedarwood with sandalwood, with, I think it has the cypriol in there, something like that. Cypriol gives like an aromatic, piney, woody aspect also, which is in here also. Sorry, apologies, it's papyrus. So papyrus, I believe, if we look on the description of Fragrantica, a powerful, dry, aromatic, woody scent with smoky and leathery nuances. So that's smoky, woody, leathery. There's already leather in there as well as other woods in there. That's why I think Santal 33 is quite polarizing. I know it's very popular. I think everyone should try it because it might be for you. It's quite a chic fragrance, I would say. Unisex, probably, I would say, overall. And it's kind of like that cool, chic, modern style that suits some people. Some people like that rustic style of the Labo in general. I kind of think the brand in general is overrated. I did a buying guide if you guys want to check that out. Santal 33, I've never been kind to it, to be honest with you, but it's cool. It's got a great performance as well. I personally prefer another 13. But yeah, looking at this description, if you want the woods, you want the intensity, like, I don't know how much more woody you can get than Santal 33. Maybe you guys know a more woody fragrance. You can leave in the comments down below. Perhaps maybe we can say Terre Hermès might be a more palatable woody fragrance. But yeah, I do think Santal 33 fits this description perfectly. Mossy woods, velvety notes of oak moss and patchouli blend smoothly with amber and citrus. It's kind of a random subfamily. I wasn't expecting this, but oak moss in itself could potentially, you could potentially say, you know, it does have woody aspects to it. It's quite a nuanced note in general, a bit mossy, a little bit ambery, I would say, a bit fuzzy, I would say, handsome, really a rich note that's really difficult to describe. You have to really appreciate it on its own, like really smell it on its own in its raw form. Very regulated these days because it is an allergen, so they've had to do a lot of different modifications in the industry because of that. But it's a staple note. So mossy wood. So oak moss is not as prominently used, in my opinion, as it used to be because of obvious reasons. But if you want a really obvious oak moss fragrance that's popular nowadays, go for Nishane's Hacivat. It has pretty much all the notes that his family is describing. The oak moss, I believe it has patchouli in there as well, ambers and citruses. So it definitely has citruses in there. It's got bergamot, grapefruit. I've got it up here on my screen. Ambers, I don't know where it would be getting that from, but it might be in there. Don't forget, guys, no breakdowns aren't everything in the actual formulation. The formulation is actually often much more complex. But this is a great Aventus family kind of fragrance. It's not the same as Aventus. It's definitely its own thing, but if you want that beastly pineapple woodiness to oak moss, it smells more mature, richer than Aventus. It's very long lasting. Last time I checked, it was around 14 hours with a medium to loud projection. If you want compliments, you want to stand out, it's a great fragrance. I feel like oak moss is a really underappreciated note. I love it. I think more guys should get into it. Dry woods, and this is quite interesting, this family. Leather and tobacco notes add a dry, often smoky accent to woody fragrances. So this would probably be a fragrance that's not going to be that mass appealing. It's going to be quite intense. I can think of something like Bentley for Men Intense being in this category, although, you know, it has other things going on. But leather, tobacco woods is going to smell very manly, in my opinion. It's going to smell quite mature also. The first fragrance that came to mind when I was writing the newsletter, when I was seeing this family, was Gucci Guilty Absolute Pour Homme, which I don't own anymore. That was quite an intense, polarizing fragrance. I actually think it's very good. It's probably the best from the Gucci Guilty line. Maybe that and Elixir are matched up together as being number one. But this was quite an intense, spicy, leathery, dry, woody fragrance. It fits this description perfectly. It smelled niche, honestly. If you want to smell masculine, go for this family. Try Gucci Guilty Absolute. It is just masculinity in the bottle. Great performance as well. Very good flanker. Underrated, perhaps. And next up is Aromatic Fougère. I'm going to keep this in the woods family, but again, the wheel is blending itself again. Aromatic Fougère, a lot of people see them as being barbershop fragrances. A lot of barbershops have these kind of scents, these shaving foam scents that smell quite clean, lavender-based. But Aromatic Fougères, I'll give you my insert in a second. I'll say what I want to say, but let me just read the description. Signature lavender and geranium blend with citrus, herbs, and wood. So interestingly, this family seems like it was conserved from the previous classification system. This was one of the classical fragrance families. I believe it was made in the late 19th century after coumarin was discovered. So coumarin comes from tonkamine. It's the main constituent that makes tonka have its signature smell. So that was like the first lab scent molecule that really revolutionized the industry. It kind of birthed the modern fragrance industry. And then Eau Givree came out with Fougère Royale. I believe that's the first ever Fougère fragrance. And a Fougère is an accord, and I think it stands for fern in French, I believe. Yes, so it's a combination of lavender, of course, with some kind of citrus, with geranium, and I think then coumarin, tonkamine. But again, every accord, every perfumer has their own slight twist on Fougères, I believe, in their own accord. For me, one of the best Fougères, if you want to experience this family, it's going to have to be Fougère d'Argent. It's in the name. Potentially my favorite private line fragrance from Tom Ford, potentially, although it's been reformulated. I got this old bottle here, which is fantastic. It kind of has like a minty, spicy, classical, creamy barbershop vibe to it. One of the best blended barbershop fragrances I've ever smelled. Some other great barbershop scents you can explore are Chanel's Platinum Egoiste. You can explore Masculine Pluriel by MFK. Very classical. Beau de Jour as well. It's a great barbershop scent. This is everything a barbershop fragrance should be. Clean, classical, but this takes it into modern times, in my opinion. I think Fougères are a really underappreciated family. I recommend them for guys who want to smell classical, gentlemanly, clean, just an absolute charmer. I do think it's a bit more of a 20th century style, but I do hope they make a full roaring comeback soon this century. Then we go to the last section of the fragrance wheel, the fresh section, which has a variety of different styles. You'll see in a second, it's quite interesting. First up is citrus, the clean, refreshing notes of bergamot and lemon, mandarin, lime, oranges, and grapefruit. Okay, it's quite self-explanatory. Citrus fragrances, refreshing, not often the most long-lasting fragrances, but you know, all these different notes are going to be in the citrus family. For me, one of my favorites right now is Terre Hermès Eau Givree. I do think the note breakdown has been oversimplified because that's like the modern thing to do with a lot of companies now, but I don't think it's just citral. I don't think I've ever smelled a citral in real life. It smells more like a grapefruit fragrance. I feel like this is more like a grapefruit fizzy soda is how I describe it. It's got that brightness, that spiciness of Terre Hermès, but it made it a bit more simple, I'll admit, but it just smells very easy to wear for the summertime. It is refreshing while still smelling classy, a little bit gentlemanly, spicy, woody, citruses. The general theme of Terre Hermès is these kind of fragrance notes, so I think it matches the line perfectly, really nicely. I slept on this fragrance for too long, guys, and I still get 6 to 8 hours actually. It's quite impressive on my skin. I recommend you check this fragrance out if you haven't already. Next up, water. This is quite interesting, so probably what we all consider to be aquatic fragrances. The scent of a sea breeze, the freshness of a waterfall, or the ozonic notes of wet air after a thunderstorm. Does that refer to petrichor? Maybe that's what petrichor is. Or maybe I'm just reaching, but yeah, I think we can kind of appreciate what this family is. Ozonic, aquatic. I have this fragrance here which I think fits both these things perfectly, and that is Chanel's Allure Sport, the original, which to me isn't a completely aquatic fragrance. It's not like it's going all in. I feel like Acqua would probably be more easily identified as aquatic. This is a little bit aquatic, a little bit citrusy, a little bit creamy, musky, smooth, and a little bit ozonic. I always say that this could be like a Handsome Pilot's signature scent. That's how airy, fresh and clean it is. A beautiful fragrance that's very easy to wear. That's what I love about this scent. This is a great family. I feel like a lot of modern takes, probably since the days of Cool Water, are just trying to kind of replicate this feeling of being airy, fresh, oceanic. I mean, how many fragrance campaigns do we have now of handsome studs just chilling by the ocean or on a boat for some reason? Like, that's like all the fragrance campaigns these days. I think this is a very popular scent family for good reason, and I don't really have to say much more about it. Although I do wonder how fragrances like Silver Mountain Water, which is not aquatic, but it kind of has that ozonic note in there. I wonder if that has its own family, would it have like an even more detailed subfamily in the water family? I don't know. But again, that's why we have this really super detailed fragrance wheels. Next up, we have the green family, which I feel like has gone, again, a bit underrated, a bit under the radar, and needs to make a bit more of a comeback. It's kind of in a similar boat to aromatic fougères. The sharp notes of fresh cut grass, violet leaves, or cucumber invigorate the senses. Cucumber, I'm thinking Nautica Voyage, but that could be in the water notes as well. That's like water and green. I don't know about that. For green, I feel like this is the king of green fragrances right here, and that is Creed's Green Irish Tweed. It smells like a musky, smooth, creamy, classical spring Irish feel. That's how I describe it. It smells rich. It smells soapy. It probably has the greenness from the lemon verbena, I believe. Yeah, it has lemon verbena and violet leaf. Lemon verbena has a citrusy smell to it as well, but has aromatic herbal nuances according to Fragrantica, and violet leaf was mentioned in that description as well. So fresh, green, sharp violet leaf is how I describe it. Ozonic cucumber, as he mentioned here as well. So if you want a green fragrance, Green Irish Tweed is classical. It's a scent family that I think is very masculine, underrated, needs to make a bit of a comeback again. Another great green fragrance is CH2 212 Men NYC, classical. Again, you see it's the older fragrances. I wish this genre had more modern takes on it. Next up, we have fruity. Okay, I think a lot of guys definitely like this scent family these days. It's everywhere. Like, look at all the Valentino Buonarroma fragrances, or look at the Victus line, etc., etc. It's like fruity fragrances have dominated a bit too much these days. Orchard fruits, berries of all hues, and a splash of flowers create delicious, fruity, floral cocktails. Okay, I'm trying to think of a fragrance that fits that perfectly. Honestly, I'm struggling to think of a fragrance that comes to mind, but if I had to think of the one that's closest to it, potentially is this Kajal Äican. Probably this family that he's describing, Michael Edwards, is probably more suited to female fragrances. You'll get a little fruity notes and florals together. Like if you look at Chanel's Coco Mademoiselle, for example, I think that's like a peach, lychee, fruits and floral cocktails, little florals in there like rose as well. That's more feminine, but Kajal Äican, this is unisex in my opinion. This is not orchid fruits, not like apples, but it's got what, passion fruit and pineapple in there, I believe. But to me, it smells super sexy. It smells like a creamy gourmand praline fruit cocktail, and has that jasmine note in there. Although I don't really think this is a floral fragrance. I'm kind of shoehorning this in there, guys, but this could fit into that category. Fruity, floral, a cocktail effect. This is one of the best fragrances of all time. 10 out of 10, really versatile, really sexy, creative, interesting. It is like Bulgari's Tygar got mixed into a fruit cocktail with a bit of praline as well. That's how I describe this fragrance. But I do think in general, fruits are appreciated in fragrances. In Atrium, for example, we have fruits in some of our most popular scents. I think guys appreciate that. We obviously got Project Blueberry we're working on. What do you guys think? Do you think that having a fruit note in a fragrance is really attractive? Is that something that really stands out to you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And that concludes this video, guys. So these are the modern day classifications of fragrances, 14 different families. As I mentioned briefly in the video, I don't think you're covering a lot of different styles and fragrances only in these 14, so that's why things can get infinitely detailed, I imagine. But it's quite interesting to do this video. I think it'd be quite interesting for you guys to learn about this, but also potentially if you want a more well-rounded collection, you want to explore different fragrance styles, you can look at the fragrance wheel as a useful tool and see if you have fragrances that already match your style, or if you want to go and acquire one for yourself. As I mentioned in the video, guys, the Atrium Curiosity Collection Discovery Set is now available, so you can try out our work, which is creative perfumery for fragrance collectors, by clicking the link in the description down below, where we are covering a variety of these different families as well in this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you check out that very old video of us doing the original fragrance families. I'm cringing in the way I used to present myself in videos, but if you want to laugh, you want to laugh at my expense, go ahead and check it out, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.